In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you so much for bringing this community together tonight. Thank you for just the joy that you bring here, the love that you bring here, the ways that you work through each and every one of us. Lord, I just ask that on this feast of St. Paul's conversion, Lord, that you just continue to draw our own hearts into deeper conversion, Lord, deeper love for you, deeper intimacy with you, Lord, and to share, as St. Paul did, the gospel with all that we encounter. Just inspire our hearts. Be with me tonight as I give this talk. Help all who are here just to receive what you desire them to receive, for me to speak whatever you desire me to speak. Help me to be an instrument. Lord, just calm any fears or anxieties. Lord, speak your word. We offer this to you in your most holy name. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, so as we are, it's January 25th, and we are a month away from Christmas. I thought it'd be perfect to bring back out Christmas ornaments again, because who doesn't love Christmas all year? So, ever since I was born and growing up, my grandma would get us ornaments every Christmas. So, I've got at least 24 ornaments, because I'm 24 at this point. But I brought a couple up here to highlight and show you. And she would get us some as a cap for the year, and some like monumentous occasion from the year, or just like some highlight of the year that she'd show through the ornament. So this is a little drum set. So this was the year that I started playing drum set, which was like 7th grade. So she got me this one to commemorate that, which was nice. And then I've got another one here, just like my 2020 graduation, so a little cap and gown, 2020 on there, graduated from Purdue. So got this to commemorate that one. But in 2021, this one caught me a little off guard. I didn't really know what to make of it. But I got this guy. And this guy is a little dude with a hat, and he's holding a beer. And I was like, I don't know, Grandma, I don't know what you're saying. Like, do you think I'm an alcoholic? I don't know. So it definitely it caught me off guard, and I don't think she thinks I'm an alcoholic, but she knows I enjoy beer. She knows that I brew my own sometimes, and I'll go out. I love going to craft breweries and just checking out new stuff that they have, and I just love the nuances and flavor profiles in that. And just a good glass of bourbon as well, as Grace said in her talk at the Father's house, highlighted that. So I enjoy it, and it is good. But it's good in moderation. And whenever, and I was going to say I haven't always been that. I haven't always drank in moderation. The first time I really encountered or drank alcohol was my freshman year of college. It was going with a group of guys on a fall break trip. We went down to beautiful southern Indiana, where I'm from Purdue, to St. Meinrad, which is an Arch Abbey and seminary down in southern Indiana. So we just went down there to visit. We chopped one day. We hung out with the monks and the seminarians and the priests down there, and it was a good time. But the night before this day, we went to one of the guys' cabins. St. Meinrad's in the middle of nowhere, guys. So there's just nothing but trees out there. It's in Indiana State Forest down that way in southern Indiana. So went to this cabin, and I just, had a couple beers there. Again, it wasn't, I didn't drink too much by any means, but it kind of set the tone for me. I was with a group of guys, again, from the Newman Center, who I looked up to and saw as role models. And they're great guys, but I think them offering this alcohol to me when I'm under the age of 21 just kind of, set this tone that ended up hurting me more than hurting me, or helping me over the years. I wanted to start out in saying, I know a lot of you guys are under the age of 21, so you shouldn't be drinking if you're under 21. Just plain and simple, it's the law. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities." So we're supposed to follow the law, guys, and I think you know that. If you wouldn't do something in front of a police officer, you probably just shouldn't do it. And anybody drinking underage probably wouldn't drink in front of a police officer. Again, some of you may find that inconvenient, but that doesn't we still follow inconvenient laws. Sometimes I want to speed and go 20 over if I'm trying to get somewhere fast, but you're not supposed to do that because, yeah, it's the law. And ultimately, again, that's like you're practicing moderation there. And yeah, it's just unjust. Unless laws are unjust, but like segregation in the 50s, 60s, like we need to be following these laws that the governing authorities have over us. And another thing is like the younger you drink, the more likely you are, I feel like, or in my case at least, and I know just in a lot of people I've encountered, the younger you drink, the more it just becomes a habit. And like if you're able, like you're doing that before you're even able to purchase alcohol. So once you get to the point when you can purchase alcohol, like it just goes to another level. And that's what happened for me. Again, while I was still underage, I would just go to house parties. I would go and, again, hang out with Catholic people, but like there was no issue with drinking there. And yeah, I'm not happy to say that, but proud to say that. And I started to just really enjoy the taste of alcohol. I liked beer. Again, it's something that I have enjoyed. But I think the fact, whenever I started to actually just really enjoy it and enjoy obviously the symptoms of drinking alcohol, and you start to feel good, and it's an easy way to, I think, have a fun time. But I just kept going further and further into it and becoming a slave to it. And by the time I actually turned 21, I was getting drunk, like, again, on weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. I was pretty much drinking heavily all those days of the week. If I got my schoolwork done, like I was going to the bars with friends to hang out and drink there. And it was really sad. I was just happy. I was like more than happy to just indulge in the superficial life of fun, and like what I saw as entertainment and a good time. And yeah, and I just kept doing it because I was like, I don't feel like I'm hurting anybody. Like I'm just drinking. I'm just having a good time. It doesn't matter that much. But like it started weighing on my conscience, and like I would get drunk sometimes, and like I knew it was wrong, and I'd go to confession, and like this was easily the thing to put me in the confessional over anything else was just getting drunk on a consistent basis. But again, it weighed on my conscience because I was still doing these Catholic activities. I was still leading a Bible study. I was still helping out with the retreats at the Newman Center. I was still going to Mass every Sunday, if not daily Mass some weeks. But like was still just caught in this cycle of drinking on the weekends. And yeah, I kept again, it was weighing on my conscience, so I kept trying to like redefine what it was to get drunk. Like I'm like, okay, if I don't black out, I'm not drunk. Or if I don't, then I was like, that's not right. So if I don't like lose my memory from the last night, I'm not actually drunk, not right. If I wake up the next day without a hangover, I wasn't drunk, not right. If I wasn't slurring my words or like stumbling along, I'm not drunk. Again, not right. Ultimately, like the definition of drunkenness is at the point that like you lose your reason. And I know that's like a kind of a black and white, or it's not actually like a black and white like thing there, but ultimately, like the reason drunkenness is wrong, again, is because you lose your reason. And Nick talked about reason a little bit last week, reason and wisdom, and that reason and wisdom allow us to choose the good. Allow us to know the good and choose the good. And if we don't have this reason to know the good, we can't perform the good. And Nick talked about these desires as well that we have last week, and he said that there's good desires, right? And there are. And having reason orders those desires, again, for the good, so we can grow in virtue, so we can grow in love, so we can actually share that with people. But when we're getting drunk, we're completely diluting that reason, we're inhibiting it, and therefore we just have these disordered desires that come through a lot more. And that definitely happened for me. I was, there were multiple times that like I acted out in lust, both like with women and on my own, because I was drinking and again inhibiting my reason. Things I wouldn't have done otherwise when I was sober, I was doing when I was drunk because again I just was diluting my reason and wasn't able to actually choose the good and grow in virtue. And not only so like it causes us to sin more because we just fall into sin because we don't have this good actually like this knowledge of the good actually present. we're just left with these base desires that, that can be wrong. And yeah, I just wasn't acting as my true self. I wasn't able to live in the present moment. I wasn't able to live in love and care for other people and act in virtue and like will the good of other people, again, because I didn't know the good because I was diluting my reason there. And St. Peter says in one of his letters, "Be sober, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." And whenever we drink, we're basically just or whenever we get drunk, we are basically just walking into that lion's den and just asking to be eaten by the devil. Again, it's so much easier to just fall into these sins and just make it, and just make some big mistakes along the way, which I did. Ultimately, this drinking habit, the reason I did it was because it gave this false illusion of happiness and fun in a superficial way. It was the path of least resistance for me. So I get to the weekend, I didn't have to put any effort into it. I could just drink, have a good time, and come back around to the next week again, where I'd again get my work done, drink, go back into it again. And I'll be honest, drinking probably impacted my job choice more than it should have. The job I worked at after I graduated college for 2 years, we had a keg in the office, and we also had we were able to have whiskey on your shelves. And a lot of the guys wouldn't drink until around 4 p.m. But the fact that you could drink at 4, I was that's pretty nice. Can drink after a long day. That's a good perk. But I wasn't taking into account the other aspects of the job as much. And I was okay, it makes good money. I'll have my needs met. I'll be able to go and take nice vacations and have these material things and all these things that the world promises us and that we think we desire and that we think that will give us ultimate happiness just don't. And I had all those things. I had every single one of those things. I had it made, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't happy. For the last 4 years, why did I feel like I was in a rut? Why did I feel like I couldn't or why didn't I feel like I was going anywhere? Why didn't I feel like I was doing anything with my life? Even though I'd achieved all these worldly goals at that time. And yeah, my love for Christ was just completely lukewarm, even though I'd want to say otherwise. I wish I could say otherwise. There were definitely ways I was pursuing him, but I just wasn't giving him my whole heart because I was, again, pursuing this drinking habit. And it came to the point where I started consistently, even in college I saw this, I started giving up alcohol during Lent because I just saw it was an issue. I saw it was an issue, I was able to identify it, I knew it was it was just handicapping me from actually growing in a relationship with the Lord. And I was living a self-centered life, just completely about me, and I was completely just practicing, again, these self-centered habits of, having a desire, consuming alcohol or consuming other things. I'll get into a little bit more outside of alcohol in a bit, but I was just trying to feed these desires and doing it consistently. And it just made it to the point where anytime I had a desire, I just act and do that thing instead of actually, again, thinking about, okay, what's the good? How can I actually serve another person, love another person more fully here? And just again, acting out of this instinctual nature. It was dehumanizing. I was not living fully as myself. And just, again, living this self-centered life around me. So, these Lents helped, and I noticed I just, again, felt more fully alive whenever I was abstaining from alcohol, whenever I was taking more time to pray and actually grow in a relationship with the Lord. And a close friend of mine, again, I credit a lot to her for helping me see, the depravity of my situation and how miserable I was. And, she led me to the Lord. And through him, I was able to, again, I was able to just get out of this pit and actually pursue him and surrender this habit of drinking, surrender these other habits that I'd built up and just, again, thought was the meaning and the happiness in my life. And I knew it wasn't. I was always told that Christ was, but my actions were always speaking differently. And so, when I actually laid down those desires, when I actually looked to Christ, whenever I actually made him the center of my life and understood the great love he has for me, how I can enter into that love, like how that love calls me to be transformed each and every day, like little by little, into the man like God created me to be. Like I was like, that's a noble thing I can pursue. That's what I want to do. Because like the whole time I was drinking, I was never thinking about, okay, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? It was, again, this satisfied the desires, the surface level desires that I had, and I thought that was fine. But I never asked the question why. Like, where am I going? Like, what am I doing with my life? And that's the thing that like every single one of you guys should be asking. Like in your actions that you're taking each and every day, like how am I pursuing a fuller life? How am I pursuing like living the fullest life that I can for love of others, love of the Lord, and sharing that hope with the world. Yeah. So I began to actually live with that purpose, and praise God that I did. So that's a little bit of my story with drinking, and like, yeah. I think the point is like, you can drink in moderation, but once you start to like, again, drink in this excess, it doesn't allow you to live fully in the present moment. It doesn't allow you to live like a full life where you're actually pursuing the good and living in a noble reality, like where we're actually pursuing, yeah, again, just good things and living a full life. So I want to kind of jump now to temperance. So sobriety is just the use of temperance when it comes to alcohol, drugs, other substances, which, again, drugs, other substances, no go. Again, those are things that like instantaneously like will deprive you of that reason. Alcohol, you can at least like have a drink or two, and it's not gonna completely, yeah, make you lose it. But yeah, so with temperance, it's not just this idea of saying no to something. It's not just like, no, I can't have candy. No, I can't have sweets. No, I can't watch TV. No, I can't, do this or that. It's saying yes to the highest goods and the highest things. So like I said, it gives you a freedom to be fully alive. Because if you are just saying yes to your instantaneous desires that you have and looking for instant gratification, it's just so easily you become a slave to it. And we're not trying to be slaves, we're trying to be saints. Man's made for more than just pleasure. You're made to give the best of yourselves in the relationships that you have, both with those around you and with God, your creator, who loves you. And to truly, again, live for the good of the other. And if you don't practice temperance, if you don't practice saying no to your desires, it makes it incredibly hard to sacrifice when that time comes. If you're actually, like if you come to the point where like you want to sacrifice for something, you're not going to be able to, because you've, again, practiced this instant gratification of your desires and have become a slave to them. Like Netflix or video games, I hate to, well, I don't hate to bash technology. It's just a fact. Like it's something that is so present and prevalent in our lives today. Like we have phones like in our palms all the time, and just again, it doesn't allow us to live fully present because. And shout out to Kevin for his talk a couple months ago. He gave one on digital contraception, which is basically this idea that like we're so focused on what's going on in your phone that you aren't able to actually be present to the world around you and love those around you in a profound way. So yeah, you just get so caught up in entertaining yourself and having a good time, and like again these superficial desires and taking care of these things that you can lose track of others, or you can even use them for again your own pursuit of these pleasures. And I know for myself, it's just like I also struggled with binge watching Netflix. I hate binging, so I just hate. Don't binge watch anything. Don't do it. It's just, I hate the phrase. I hate the phrase. It's evil. Like, watch in moderation. Just do it. So like, I wasted time, like, especially my freshman year of college, I just wasted time watching a ton of Netflix, playing video games, like 6 hours a day, watching sports, checking sports stats, again, all these things. I would just be stuck on this screen, and again, not actually living presently around me. And there's no room for relationship because I wasn't engaging in a relationship. I was engaging in, again, this entertainment. I wanted to live in a comfortable bubble of pleasure and like a comfortable bubble where I wouldn't be challenged and I could just live content and no one would bother me. I just wanted to live in that zone. And that's like, again, with this alcohol issue that I had and also within the, again, I think technology just has been a big part of my story as well. And if we constantly have this noise and visual distraction coming at us, it just makes it a very, very difficult place to actually encounter God. We have no room for silence, and God wants to pour his love into you at all times. Like, he wants to do that. He wants to be a waterfall and for you to just receive it. But the issue comes when we don't make space for that. We don't actually make space to actually receive that. So whenever we constantly have this noise and distraction going on around us, again, it makes it just a very difficult place to encounter God. And so, yeah, Mother Teresa says, you must be full of silence. For in the silence of the heart, God speaks. An empty heart, God fills. So again, if we're constantly on our phones, if we're constantly, checking social media, if we're constantly watching YouTube, if we're constantly watching Netflix, if in our free time, if we're constantly going to these screens, if we're going to these outlets of entertainment, we're not allowing any time for God to actually enter into that space. And we're constantly caught up in it. I think a lot of us just kind of go straight to those things because it's at our fingertips, and a lot of us just hate being bored. And who likes being bored? Andy in the back. So we just naturally go to these things, or we're lonely, and the solution is just getting distracted by the screen, or we're hurt, and again, the screen allows distraction. So we have all this mulling about in us. But the only place that can actually, the only person and the only place that this can actually be addressed is with the Lord. We need to invite the Lord into these vulnerable places, these places of loneliness, these places of hurt, and not just distract ourselves from it. Because he's the only one that can actually heal that, and he's the only one that can actually transform you in that and allow you to live fully alive in peace and joy. There's a reason why people are so miserable right now is because they don't make time for silence. And they just constantly have noise going. Or again, I don't want to judge people, but people walking around campus with their earphones in all day, you're not creating any space for silence, and you're not creating space for God to enter into that. And the more that we give into these things, the less we're fulfilled. The more we consume, the more we feel we need something, and we just, again, become a slave to our desires. We stop thinking about we stop using our reason because we've come to the point of just instantly gratifying ourselves. And we don't know how to actually do the good. We don't know we deprive ourselves from even being able to think. We don't know how, we can't make decisions. So many people are indecisive. I feel like so many people are indecisive today. But it's just because ultimately I don't think we know how to make decisions because we don't know how to choose. Because a lot of times we just, again, if we do go with anything, we go with our gut and our instantaneous desire that comes with that. And I think Paul puts it very, very pointedly here. Again, shout out to Paul. Speaks today. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want to do. And that's what happens whenever we, again, fall into this contentment and this, just intemperate lifestyle. It just makes it so much easier to fall into that. It's hard enough to live virtuously, again, when you're not a slave to your desires. So, all that to say, how to stay temperate, how to actually live temperately, how to be sober, how to live soberly. So, I think first and foremost, you have to have boundaries. You have to be able to say no, both to people in your lives, and also to the things that are, again, you might have a deep attachment to, a deeper attachment than you should. So you need to be able to say no to those things and to live authentically with the values of that you've received in being formed, and Catholic values and beliefs. Don't worry about keeping up with the crowd. Don't worry about fitting in. Don't worry about because that's what that was a lot of times whenever I was drinking. I was with a crowd of people that would kind of just pull me into it. I didn't know how to say no because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a part of the fun crowd. I wanted to be seen as fun, and I wanted to I just wanted to be there. And I didn't know how, if someone bought me a drink, I didn't know how to say no to that. So just learning boundaries, learning basic boundaries. And there's a book there's a book back there in the back. It's red and white. I haven't read it myself. It's called Boundaries. I have a copy. I haven't read it yet. But if you struggle with boundaries, which I'm sure a lot of you do, please pick up one of those copies in the back and read it and try to grow in that. So I think boundaries are huge. Also, just surround yourself with people that are living temperately, that are living like a life of virtue and pursuing a life of virtue. One, those friendships are going to just have so much more depth. Two, like if you're living constantly, or if you're constantly spending time with people engaging in activities that are pulling you away from God and like causing you to live immoderately, I think especially drinking or doing any kind of drugs, it's like don't engage with them when they're doing that activity. Like you can still be friends with them outside of that context. You can still be friends with them and like share time with them outside of there. But if they're constantly pulling you into it and you can't say no to them and you're constantly falling into it, it's probably just best that you don't spend time with them like in those areas where you're living in this near occasion and constantly falling. So I'd also say that. And another thing is, surround yourself with people who practice temperance and actually, and don't spend time with people that cause you to continue to fall, at least in that context. So the third one is don't live a life you need to escape from. Like the reason I chose drinking as an outlet on the weekends was because I wasn't happy doing like the stuff during the week, and I packed it so full and I lived so busily that again I just kind of explode on the weekends and go crazy because I was not living an ordered life during my week. Like take time for rest and time for leisure, but like leisure is not just amusement. Leisure is not just sitting in front of your TV and wasting time away. Like I know for a lot of us that's probably just the restful activity that comes to mind in our brains. And not saying like TV or video games are bad things, but it's whenever you are just living this passive like lifestyle and not actually living actively in your rest. So like doing things like, playing music if you have that talent, going outside, like spending time outdoors, like spending time in God's creation, being inspired by that, reading good literature, just like those are a few things. Like these ways of leisure should be allowing us to contemplate God's goodness and like allowing us to feel more fully alive in that. Cooking a meal, like there's so many things that you can do that aren't just like, again, sitting in front of a screen passively. And even watching a movie, but like with a group of friends. So you can actually have like a conversation afterwards about like, whatever the meaning of the movie was. I know Nick would love that because Nick loves movies, which are good things. Again, I don't want to like bash any of these things as completely horrible, but it's living within an ordered, or living within moderation of that thing and living, again, not living a life that we need to escape from. So again, ordering time, like putting time into your week where you actually can rest and rest well, and not just waste your time away on your phone. Because again, that's just a lesser use of that time. The last thing on here that I have is practice fasting. So the church on Fridays, the Universal Church, calls us to fast, and a lot of the Universal Church fasts from meat. We're not saying you have to fast from meat on Fridays, but it's a good practice to just like fast from something on Fridays, because that allows you, again, to practice this virtue of temperance, to be able to say no to something that you like, something that's good, and like put it in its proper place in your life so you don't have too deep of an attachment to it. And if you practice fasting from these small things, it's only going to help you build up the ability to, again, say no to like more powerful passions when they come. So by practicing, again, just like weekly, every Friday, I invite you guys to fast from something. And it just allows you to grow more fully in that temperance. And it also, I think, allows you to really like seek the deepest desire that you have in your heart and your life, which is for the Lord. Like He is absolutely the most important thing. And He desires you so much, and He wants you so deeply, like to come into His presence and to just be with Him. And our desires should be oriented and our thoughts should be oriented so that we always, like, so that sometimes we feel that desire, and like we understand, like, that he's the only one that, like, when we are left with this like unsatisfied desire, it reminds us of the fact that he's the only one that can truly actually satisfy us. Yeah, we live in a finite world. We live like in a world where like nothing will last forever, and only he will last forever. And like we have this infinite void in our hearts, and he's the only one that can fill that infinite void. And none of these other things that we try to use to fill that will ever bring us happiness. So yeah, I'd like to leave you guys with just a quote from G.K. Chesterton. It's about drinking, but like for those of you that aren't 21, remember this for when you are 21. For those of you that are 21, I kind of like to live by this. But he says that you should only drink when you are like when you would otherwise be happy. And I think that's a good thing to take into like whenever you do drink, because you should drink in Thanksgiving, you should drink in celebration for all the good that God's done in your life. And like you shouldn't, yeah. I think integrating that into your time when you drink helps to bring it to another level of, again, like I said earlier, in this leisure, contemplating God's good in your life and the beauty that he's working. So yeah, that's it. Questions?